Hello everyone. As promised, new info on the natal course. First, the unpleasant part. I have to tell you some things to make sure you don't feel fooled by me when you enroll. To make sure you know exactly what you are going to get in this course. So, this is a practical course. And when I say practical, I mean it in two different but related ways. The first sense is it comes from my personal practice. I've have been studying astrology for I don't know 2, 3 decades, and I've been seeing clients for at least the better part of 2 decades, and this what I'm going to teach you comes from what I've learned, filtered through what I've practiced. So it, it is a complete course in the sense that I'm going to show you how I do from beginning to end, how I assess a single chart, how I compare charts, and how I evaluate events in the life of a person based on techniques that advance the chart. There is nothing that I don't use that I'm not going to talk about here, and there is no area in the life of a client that cannot be investigated using what I am going to teach you. But this is not a thesis, this is not an academic work or a pseudo-academic work to be presented at a university. So this is not, by any means, a comprehensive assessment of every technique available. There are a lot of techniques that will not be present in this course. And I'm not saying they don't work. Our art is a craft. It is practical. We have the general principles which must be respected. We have the object which must be respected in its nature. The technique, the interface between the two of them varies from person to person, from school to school, from astrology line to astrology line. There are different ways to approach the same problem and different ways which work, but I don't know those techniques as well I know the ones I'm going to teach. And I can assure you these techniques work because I've learned them from the best, mostly from John Frawley, and some bits from other authors, living and dead. And I've tested it for many years with real people with real problems, and I've seen it work. So it's practical in this sense that it comes from my personal practice, from my personal understanding of the principles and of the techniques. But it's practical in another meaning, in another sense too. It's practical in the sense that the classes will have a lot of real examples. We are going to deal with real charts, some of them for the entire duration of the course, some of them just for 1 or 2 classes. I'm going to explain the theory behind what I'm going to talk about later in every class. I'm going to talk a bit about the principles, and then I'm going to show how it works in real charts. And I said it's practical in 2 ways, but in fact it's practical in 3 ways. it's practical in the sense that I expect you to do some work between classes. As I said, this is a craft. You don't learn a craft by listening to a person. That's part of the learning process. You have to do some work, right? So this is a practical course. It comes from what I've learned, filtered through what I've worked on, and it uh, and I will expect you to do some work also. It is complete as I said, in the sense that uh, if you do the work, you will be able to investigate a natal chart from beginning to end, and there's nothing in the life of a client that can be investigated using astrology that you will not be able to investigate using what I'm going to teach. But by no means you should expect me to talk about every possible technique. Most of the techniques I don't use, I won't even mention, or I'll mention very briefly, right? Some exceptions, very few and rare. I'm going to mention things that I don't do, but mostly we are going to talk about things that I know that work because I do them all the time. And because it's a practical course, the classes won't last long. I talk too much. I have this problem, and I have no problem in talking 4 or 5 hours. But I've done this course in Portuguese a few years ago, and I've noticed that anything beyond 2 hours, it's just me talking to people who are almost sleeping or watching social media in another device or things like that. The span of attention of students do not last that long. So classes, the live sessions, the actual meetings will be at most 2 hours. I plan to speak between 1 hour and 1 hour and a half, including the theoretical introductions and the examples chosen for the class, and then open up for live questions. If you have any questions, you can ask at any time. You can send me messages between classes, of course, but you have the opportunity to ask questions during classes. Okay? That means that some of the classes I'm going to mention here will actually last longer than one session. Okay? Most of them will. I think the first 2 classes won't, but most of them will. Because of that, I don't want to talk for 4 hours and then another hour of questions and people. The classes will be recorded. You can watch it later, of course, but I want you to benefit from them the most while I am teaching them. So it's not practical to have a big class and you remember about 5 minutes of the beginning and 10 minutes of the middle and 5 minutes at the end, and then you listen to it again to know what I was talking about, right? In this 1 hour and 1 hour and a half we'll have probably half an hour, 40 minutes of real theory, and then we're going to look at charts, right? As I said in previously, I don't remember when, I'm going to divide the course in 3 modules. I think they flow naturally, one from the other, and it gives people the possibility of paying the modules in 3 installments. The first module is delineation, how we assess a natal chart, and we investigate the general possibilities and impossibilities of a natal of a life, right? The classes will be, the first one is a general introduction to the course. It will probably be the most theoretical class of the course, because I want to discuss a bit of what is it that we do. So what is astrology? What is natal astrology? What do we do when we do natal astrology? The problem with twins. Do twins negate what we do? Is it possible to do astrology with twins, for example? So this is a first broad brush of the subject. The second class is another introduction, but in a lower level. I'm going to review the fundamentals, the basic blocks, the planets, the signs, the houses, the fixed stars, the Arabian parts. When I'm talking about the planets, I'm going to talk about aspects, conjunctions, antitia, reception, dignity, and Arabian parts too. When I said reception, as this video is to make sure you don't feel fooled when you enroll, I understand and practice reception exactly as John Frawley says and teaches. So if you don't agree with that, you have to know that I use them exactly as he says it should be used. Okay? The third class will be on temperaments, which are the basic blocks of the general assessment. The fourth class will be on manners and wit, which are 2 different subjects, and they should be taught separately, I think. But historically, people teach them together, and most of the students have some notion of natal astrology, so it's better if we talk about them together, but making a distinction in the class. They are not the same thing. They are not even that closely related. The fifth class is about prenatal eclipses and general fortune, to the extent that we can talk about fortune, fame, or luck in a person's life. Then we go to the houses. One class from houses 1 to 7, one class about house 6, and one about the rest of the houses. Right? As I said, most of these classes will be divided in at least 2 live sessions. Then we go to the second module. Oh, sorry. The first module, the classes will be, the live sessions will be held once a week, and I'm not going to do any pause between the modules. You can think of the course as one single course. if you prefer to think of it like that. So this first module will cost $200. The second module is a bit shorter. I'm going to talk about comparison, about what we call synastry. I'm going to compare charts, investigate relationship between people, but not only love, not only love relationships, not boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and things like that. We're going to talk about this too, of course, but also student and teacher, employee and employer, relationship between siblings, between parents and their children, and between partners, creative partners and business partners. This will be probably this will encompass probably 4 or 5 live sessions, because the theory is not that difficult to understand. First class, we go through the theoretical part, and then we're going to see examples, and we're going to work with different examples, different pairs of charts or trios of charts to really understand it in a practical sense. It will cost $150. The third module is prediction. Prediction is a bad word, but everybody uses it, so I'm going to use it too. First class, the periods of life. This is an exception. Here I'm going to talk a bit about things I don't do, right? This is when I mention perfections, which I actually do, and a bit of other techniques, but mostly perfections, I'm sorry. Then one class about secondary progressions, the general assessment of greater cycles and larger scale events in life. I'm going to talk very briefly about directions, primary directions, because I'm just taking a bit from the course itself. They work more or less the same way, and they assess more or less the same things, but progressions have the advantage that they are easier to do, and it's easier to trust the software when you're doing it. So that's basically why I do progressions and not directions. Then we are going to go to the shorter scale techniques, solar returns, which divide the life in years, then lunar returns, then derived lunar returns, and I'm going to mention transits and why I don't use them. The two last classes, lunar returns and derived lunar returns, will probably have no theory, or very little theory, because the theoretical part is already described in the solar returns, which is good because as I said a lot of times in this video, as this course is practical, we're going to be able to do with a couple of examples, everything we've learned until the point that we use lunar return. So we'll take a chart, do a general assessment of the temperament, wits, manner, have a look at the prenatal eclipses and the general fortune, a quick look at the houses and what they seem to be saying about the person, and then we choose one or two or three events in the life of the person, and then we investigate it using progressions first, and then solar returns and lunar returns, and if we need, derived lunar returns. Right? This last module will cost $250. When will the classes start? I will confirm during the week. I plan to do classes on Fridays, and I planned to start May the 1st. But I have a personal problem. I have a wedding to attend at May the 2nd, on May the 2nd. So I have to confirm the date before I confirm the beginning of the course. But I'll do that in 2-3 days most. If I cannot start on the 1st of May, I'm going to start the next Friday, right? Which time the live sessions would be, that will depend on the students. I know I'm not all powerful. I cannot make the impossible, but I will try to choose the time that is best for all the students, or for most of the students, provided that it's not horrible for any student. If I had 100 students, I would divide them probably in Europe and Americas, because that's the biggest time zone war among the students that have said they want to do the course. But there are not so many people interested, so I'll have to choose one time. But I'll do the best I can to accommodate the needs of everyone, right? So if you're interested in the course, don't forget to tell me, where do you live? Which time zone do you use, so I can organize it to be good, or at least tolerable for everyone. So that's it. I hope you like it. I will do some short videos, because this is a long one, very short videos on each of the classes this week, so you know a little bit more about what am I going to talk about. Thanks for your interest. Thanks for watching me for 25 minutes, and see you soon.